all the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please be seated, sir. And then would you state your name, spelling your last name, please?
Thomas Christopher, C-H-R-I-S-T-O-P-H-E-R.
And how are you employed?
I'm a detective lieutenant for the City of Milwaukee Police Department.
And how long have you been employed with Milwaukee Police Department?
Approximately 20 years.
Were you so employed on September 8th, 1986?
Yes, I was.
What was your rank and duties on that date?
I was a detective at that time assigned to sexual assault investigations.
Did you have occasion on September 8th, 1986 to come in contact with the person you know as Jeffrey Dahmer?
Yes, sir, I did.
Could you please identify him by where he's seated and what he's wearing?
I'll stipulate.
Very well.
How did that contact occur?
I was called into police headquarters as a result of a lewd and lascivious behavior arrest made by uniform officers and was sent in with a dispatch to question a prisoner.
And that prisoner was Jeffrey Dahmer?
Yes, it was.
Showing me what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 39 for identification. Can you identify what that is, please?
Yes, sir. It's a photostatic copy of the show-up report.
And does your writing appear on that?
Yes, sir, it does.
Where does it appear?
On the rear portion for the statement of prisoner.
And did you sign that statement?
Yes, I did.
And did you do that on September 8th, 1986?
Yes, I did.
I'd move for admission of State's Exhibit number 39 insofar as it indicates the part written by Detective Lieutenant Christopher.
No objection. Received.
Referring to State's Exhibit number 39, does it indicate that you advised the defendant of his Miranda rights?
It does.
What rights did you inform him of, and could you tell the jury that just as you told Jeffrey Dahmer on that date?
At 9:50 p.m. on that date, I advised the subject that he had the right to remain silent, that anything he said could and would be used against him in a court of law. I advised him that he had the right to consult with a lawyer before questioning and to have that lawyer present with him during questioning. I advised him that if he could not afford an attorney, one would be appointed for him at public expense and could be present during questioning if he so wished. I also advised him that if he did decide to answer my questions without a lawyer present, that he had the right to stop questioning at any time and remain silent. After asking him or advising him of all 5 of these rights, I then asked him if he understood each and every one of those rights and wished to waive those rights and talk to me about this alleged incident.
Did he waive those rights?
He did.
After that, did he make a statement?
He did.
What did he tell you?
He initially related some pedigree information or background information regarding his family, his educational background, his military service, and some of his family members. We then went into the allegations of the lewd and lascivious behavior charge, that being that he had indecently exposed himself in the 5100 block of Kinnickinnick River Parkway to several young boys. His initial statement, he denied that he had purposely exposed himself. He stated that he had been living with his grandmother in West Allis and that he had consumed about 4 beers while at his grandmother's house. Subsequently went out for a walk and stopped at a store where he bought an additional beer, consumed that beer, and as he was walking through the parkway, felt a need to urinate and stopped at a tree, and his quote was, took a pee next to the tree. He then continued walking, and then a short time later he was stopped by police. He denied that he intentionally had exposed himself to anyone.
What happened then?
I took him out of the interrogation room, which was located in the Vice Control Division, and took a photograph, a Polaroid portrait type photograph, which was the standard operating procedure at that time. took the subject back into the interrogation room and was preparing to take him back to the jail area of the building when he stopped me and admitted that he was not being truthful with me.
What did he say then?
He admitted that he had indeed exposed himself to these boys and that he had one beer. He was in the bushes and stated that he was masturbating as these children went by. He stated that on 4 or 5 other occasions he had done the same thing, all of them along the parkway at the same area. He stated that he doesn't know why he did it or why he exposed himself, and did acknowledge that he did have some sort of a problem.
What happened next?
Subsequent to that, he was returned to the jail area and was processed through court.
Do you have any other contact with him?
Not that evening, no.
Okay. In the time you spent with Jeffrey Dahmer, did you ever believe he was hearing voices?
No.
Did you ever believe he was having hallucinations?
No.
Did you ever see him go into some sort of stupor or trance?
No, sir.
Did he ever respond to your questions in an irrational manner?
No, he did not.
Actually, he responded to them perfectly appropriately, didn't he?
He did respond appropriately. He did attempt to deceive me at one point, and although I cannot recall the exact words, I did express to him that I was skeptical of his statement relative to the consumption of the beer and urinating near the tree.
Okay. Were his responses to your questions ever incoherent?
No.
Based on your observations of Jeffrey Dahmer's conduct, actions, manner, expression, and conversations with him, did you at any time believe he had a mental illness?
No, sir.
No further questions.
Cross-examination.
Detective Lieutenant Christopher, you were a detective at that time.
Yes, sir, I was.
You were working in the sexual assault section,
Yes, sir, I was.
so that anything relating to violations of the law as regards violations of sexual offenses would come under the jurisdiction of that segment of the Detective Bureau where you were working, or the Vice Squad.
That is correct.
And one of the things that you folks did in the Vice Squad was to make sure that when you had people who committed the kind of conduct that Mr. Dahmer was accused of, that you'd have a chance to just see what kind of a person you had and whether or not there was more to be looked at than just the mere act of exposing oneself, right?
That is correct, sir.
Sure. So in other words, if you had somebody, there was all kinds of complaints coming out that there was somebody running through a certain area of town, you would try and see if the guy who was arrested was that same fella.
That is correct, sir.
Now, when you sat down and you talked to him, and he said that he had something to drink and he was just urinating, that's something you heard a lot about people that were doing that, right?
I've heard other prisoners make that statement, yes.
Well, a lot of people, when they're picked up, strike that. Most people accused of exposing themselves initially deny it. True?
Yes, sir.
Many people come up with an excuse that they had to go to the bathroom and they were merely urinating. True?
That is true.
You never said to Jeffrey Dahmer, Mr. Dahmer, we have a lot of complaints that a person matching your description has been doing this kind of conduct down in that area, did you?
I may have, sir. I can't recall the exact context of the conversation. I do recall that I was skeptical of his story. How I related that to him, I'm not entirely sure.
But in the other top part of the show-up, it says that the boys reported they saw this fella masturbating, so that's why you were skeptical.
Yes, sir.
But you had no bevy of complaints that a fella matching his description was that you were out looking, or you had patrols looking for somebody who was doing this with regularity, did you?
No, sir.
Right. Now, Dahmer tells you, I had a lot to drink and I had to take a, quote, pee, quit quote, and you take a picture of him, and then as you're doing your thing, you say, you know what, I'm not buying this, or whatever word you used. and he says to you, I wasn't telling you the truth, I was exposing myself, right?
Basically, yes, sir.
In other words, he just confessed.
That's correct.
About that instance.
And several others.
So you had no knowledge of the others.
No, sir.
And he said to you, I don't know why I do it, didn't he?
That's correct.
He said to you, I don't know why I do it. I know I've got a problem. You know what he told you?
Yes, sir.
Now, how many years were you in law enforcement?
Approximately 20.
And how many years did you work the vice squad on the sexual assault and sexual problem kind of cases?
Approximately 10 years as a detective.
What you had in Mr. Dahmer, A, his immediate admission after you told him you didn't believe him. B, him telling you that he wasn't telling you the truth, that he had done it a number of times. C, that he knows he has a problem, and he doesn't know why he does it. Different than the ordinary one, correct?
Different than the ordinary, I'm sorry, sir?
Exposure.
I've had many people accused of lewd and lascivious exposure complaints confess to them. It's not unusual to get them to confess.
How soon after you get them to confess do they confess? As quickly as Mr. Dahmer did?
I have no independent recollection of how quickly he did.
According to the show-up, the minute you confronted him and told him, at least from what reading here, when you told him you were skeptical, you write down that he said, I wasn't telling you the truth. That's fast, isn't it?
In effect, sir, what it says in the show-up is that I was getting ready to take him back. Actually, the questioning had terminated, and I was getting ready to take him back to his cell. And at that point is when he acknowledged that he had, in fact, exposed himself.
That's all.
Nothing further.
You may step down, sir. Thank you. Next witness for the state.
Yes, Your Honor. State called Cynthia Sartin.
Name, please.
My name is Cynthia Sartin. S is in Sam, A-R-T-I-N.
Ms. Sartin, how are you employed?
I am employed as a probation and parole agent for the state of Wisconsin.
And were you so employed on April 6th, 1987?
Yes, I was.
On that date, did you come in contact with a person known to you as Jeffrey Dahmer?
Yes, I did.
Is he present in the courtroom now?
Yes, he is.
Could you please?
We'll stipulate to the identification.
What was the purpose of that meeting on April 6th, 1987?
Okay, on April 6, 1987, I did an initial interview with Jeffrey Dahmer, something that we do in probation and parole to get to know the client and inform him of his duty on probation.
He had been assigned to your caseload.
Yes,
Basically, he had been convicted, and he was placed on probation. Is that correct?
Can we tell conviction was for, so for the record, please?
And this conviction was for disorderly conduct?
yes,
And that's out of an arrest for lewd and lascivious behavior?
correct.
At that meeting, did you go over the client management classification interview questionnaire?
Yes, I did.
Showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 40. Could you identify what that is, please?
This is the Client Management Classification Interview Questionnaire, CMC.
It's referred to as the CMC for short,
Correct.
right? That's easier to say. Is that a document used in the ordinary course of probation and parole business?
Yes, it is.
And whose writing appears on that document?
It's my writing.
Anybody else's?
No, just mine.
Okay. When you give the CMC interview questionnaire to a probation or parolee, what's the procedure you follow?
Well, we would sit down and I would ask the questions, and I would have the client answer the questions that I've asked him, and I would jot down some of the information that he would give me.
And that document is divided into 3 columns for each question, is that correct? They have the question, they have the response or your interpretation of his response, and the scoring guide.
Correct.
Is that the process you followed with Mr. Dahmer?
Yes, it is.
I'd ask that State's Exhibit 40 be admitted.
Any objection? Received.
Now, the CMC is broken down into a couple of different categories, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
The first section deals with attitudes about the offense, correct?
Correct.
Right. What was the first question you asked him?
The first question I asked him was, "Can you tell me about the offense that got you in trouble?" And question one would be, "How did you get involved in the offense?"
And how did he answer that?
He said he had a few drinks. He went to the restroom in an undeveloped area, relieved himself behind a tree. He was drunk. He went a little further. He saw two kids saw him. Later on, the police arrested him. He says that he thought nothing of it. He was bored and tipsy and was alone there.
Did he indicate to you that he had done this before?
No, he didn't.
Did you ask him another question?
Yes, I did.
What was that question?
The next question was, "Could you tell me more about the circumstances that led up to the offense?"
And how did he respond?
He responded that he's been put through the ringer and that he had done shoplifting before, but that was okay because there was no victim, and they were laughing at him, some friends, I assume, from when.
I'm having a terrible time hearing how you're answering.
Oh, is that right? I'm
Could
sorry.
you pull the microphone maybe just a little lower? That's fine, thanks.
Okay, start again. He had been put through the ringer. I did shoplifting of a coat before. There was no victim. He was with friends, and that they were laughing about it.
Okay. When you asked him specifically about the circumstances that led up to this lewd and lascivious offense that he was convicted of disorderly conduct for, did he indicate to you then that this was a pattern of behavior he had had before and thought he needed treatment for it?
No, he did not.
Did you ask him another question?
Yes.
How did he respond to the third question you asked?
Looking back at your offense, what's your general feeling about it? He says he'll never go back into the woods again. He had no idea this would happen. It was a heavily wooded area, not a park. He said he feels like he is the victim because he is out of hundreds of dollars, or out of dollars because of the offense.
Next, let's turn to page 9 of the questionnaire. And you asked him a number of other questions in between this, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Okay. How did he respond to, first, what is question number 34?
Okay. In your relationship with your wife or girlfriend, in parentheses, it says husband or boyfriend, who tends to make the decisions?
And how did he respond to that?
His response was, I would like to make most decisions.
Did he claim he had any difficulty making decisions?
No, he did not.
Did he claim that his decisions were the product of a compulsion and he couldn't help himself?
No, he did not.
Did he seem to you as the sort of person who could assert himself and do what he wanted to do?
Yes.
Another section of the CMC deals with feelings, correct?
Yes.
Under what did question 36 read?
What kinds of things get you depressed? What do you do when you're feeling depressed?
And what kind of things did he say got him depressed?
Getting arrested
What
and
else?
losing his freedom.
I'd like to direct your attention to page 10, question number 38.
Okay.
What is that question?
What do you do when you're feeling angry with people? And then you go on further after a response and says, have you ever hurt anyone when you were angry?
And how did Jeff Dahmer respond to that question?
He's not around people that can make him angry.
One of the final areas is what's called plans and problems. I'd like to direct you to question number 41. What is that question?
Aside from legal problems, what is the biggest problem in your life now? And his response was lack of money.
Did he mention anything about drugging people?
No, he did not.
Did he mention anything about compulsions?
Well, why don't we just let her write down what he wrote, what he said, and then we don't have to ask all the things he didn't say. I object to the form of the question.
Overruled.
Did he ask anything about his did he mention anything about having difficulty with his compulsions?
No, he did not.
Did he mention anything about having problems with drinking?
No, he did not.
Did he mention anything about having problems in his sexual life?
No, he did not.
You saw Jeffrey Dahmer on a number of other occasions as well, correct?
Correct.
All told, approximately how much time did you spend with Jeffrey Dahmer?
I would guess it would be about 5.5 hours.
During that time, did you ever believe he was hearing voices?
No, I did not.
Did you ever believe he was having hallucinations?
No.
Did you ever see him go into a stupor?
No, I did not.
Did he ever appear to have unconnected thoughts?
No, he didn't.
Did he ever respond to your questions irrationally?
No, he did not.
Did he ever respond to your questions incoherently?
No, he did not.
Did you ever see him go into a trance?
No, I did not.
Based on your observations of Jeffrey Dahmer's conduct, actions, manner, expressions, and your conversations with him, did you at any time believe that he had a mental illness?
No, I did not.
Did you at any time believe that he had difficulty distinguishing right from wrong?
No, I did not.
Did you at any time believe he was suffering from a mental illness such that he was unable, Did you at any time believe he was suffering from a mental illness that impaired his capacity, substantially impaired his capacity to conform his conduct to the requirements of law?
Now, I'm going to object to that. There's been no foundation laid from that. They're limited to the Duthie rule for non-experts, and a Duthie rule question cannot be asked that way, and I object to it.
Your Honor, I think Duthie says after a period of hours, actually it's not even clear that the jailer talked to him for hours, they could do it. I can't say sane and unsane.
Question. Did you at any time believe he was suffering from a mental illness such that he was unable, did you at any time believe he was suffering from a mental illness that impaired his capacity to substantially impair his capacity to conform his conduct to the requirements of law?
I'm going to ask counsel to rephrase the question consistent with the case.
Okay.
We're referring to Duthie, D-U-T-H-E-Y, v. State, 131, Wisconsin, 178.
At page 187 is the question, Your Honor.
Yes, that's correct.
What impression was made on your mind by the conduct, actions, manner, expressions, and conversations you observed in your time with Jeffrey Dahmer?
My impression was that he understood everything that I talked to him about and that he was coherent, and I even thought he was quite average as a client.
You thought he was quite what?
Quite average.
Okay. Nothing further.
Ms. Sartin, is that
Sartin.
Sartin.
Correct.
Jeffrey Dahmer received a letter from you introducing yourself. It's kind of a form letter that was dated April the 2nd, 1987. telling him to report to you 4 days later at 9 o'clock in the morning because you were going to be his probation agent, at least for the purposes of the first appointment. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Okay. He showed up.
Yes, he did.
Now, in order for him to get there, he had to have been convicted and placed on probation.
That's correct.
And the charge that he was coming to you with was disorderly conduct.
Correct.
And that came as a result of his being in a park and exposing himself and being arrested and charged,
That's correct.
subsequently convicted. Now, we had before you came in here, and I don't know if you were in the courtroom or not, it doesn't matter, but the detective in that case was Detective Tom Christopher. He read a show-up telling us how he had advised Mr. Dahmer of his constitutional rights, how Mr. Dahmer denied the exposure, and then Mr. Dahmer said, no, I wasn't telling you the truth. I did it, and I was masturbating, because that's what he was accused of in front of these boys, that he had done it before, he didn't know why, he'd done it a number of times before, he didn't know why, and that I think it says, I think he says to the detective, this is all on the record, sir. He doesn't know why he exposed himself. He says he knows he has a problem. Did you know those facts as he came to talk to you, what I have just read?
Yes.
Okay, so you had to show up,
I had the criminal complaint.
all right? And it's your opinion that in the criminal complaint that was stated? That part, that he knows he has a problem?
It said that.
All right, now, question was asked of you what he told you about the offense. Did he tell you that he did what he was accused of?
Yes, he did.
Oh, okay, because I didn't know. What you have in your words, went further. What did that mean then? It says few drinks, restroom, undeveloped area, comma, relieved self behind tree, comma, drunk, went further. 2 kids saw me. What did he mean by that?
It was my assumption that he meant that he had masturbated.
Okay, great. So he was being honest with you. At least he was being consistent with what he told the police.
Correct.
Now he says, you put circumstances, could you tell me more about the circumstance that led up to the offense? He said, putting me through ringer, shoplifting, coat, no victim, they were laughing, comma, not. What does that mean?
To my recollection, he was saying that he had done a previous offense of shoplifting. He was with friends. That was an additional offense that he'd done, and he had been put through the ringer.
Now, on the next page, when you get into your offense pattern, there's a discussion concerning that shoplifting case again, is there not?
Yes.
Same shoplifting case?
Yes, I think so.
You said, I didn't have a job, wanted a coat, and took it. Lack of money, several years, never repeated, wanted to see if I could get away with it. Isn't that what he said?
Yes.
Was that consistent or inconsistent with what he told you on the front page about the laughing and being with friends?
I think it's consistent.
But still in all, the second time when he had to do it again, he told you more detail.
Yes.
Okay. When you said to him, looking back, what is your general feeling? He says, I'll never go back in the woods again. No idea this would happen. Heavily wooded area, not a park. I feel, what does that say, please?
It says, I feel like I'm the victim out of dollars.
Out of hundreds, does that say?
No, I think it says, yeah, out of hundreds of dollars, right.
Okay. He admits to you that he was drinking, right?
Yes.
tells you about his relationships, that he doesn't have many friends.
Correct.
Tells you he's a loner.
Yes.
You ask him, how much socializing do you do with women, parentheses, men? Do you generally go out with a lot of women, men, or date the same person for a long time? What does he tell you? Not very much. I'm sorry. Do you want me to help you? Page 9.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Apologize.
Oh, page 9. Not very much, correct. Never had a real relationship, nothing serious. I guess it says he wanted a good paying job, saw no priority.
I'm sorry, he what, please?
Excuse me, where were we?
Yeah, that's right, right where you're talking about. Did he say no priority? Does that have to do with question 33? Is your handwriting that's under 33?
It's under 33, but it could have been 434 too. So.
Well, under 33, the question is, how much socializing do you do? I've read that. And then the other 33 said, client's opposite sex relation pattern is, and it says long-term, short-term, short-term. He circled short-term, less emotionally involved relationship or little dating experience, correct?
I circled that, correct.
Is that correct? Mm-hmm. But the handwritten notes under that are yours, and they read not very much, never had a real relationship, nothing serious, good pay job, no priority, saw marriage, avoid. What did that mean?
Well, he was saying he was interested in a good paying job. He saw marriage as not a priority. It was something that he would avoid.
Did you at any time ask him in that discussion what his sexual preference was? I mean, or maybe it was totally immaterial, but did the subject matter come up?
Never came up.
The kind of crime that he committed, that he brought you to him, exposing himself in front of boys and masturbating, did that lead you to believe in your professional experience that his sexual orientation was homosexual? Or did it not matter to even make inquiry on it?
I wasn't sure at that point. And if I may say further, those questions are to prompt his answer, and we accept it as what it's worth.
I understand. Mm-hmm. He says, what kinds of things get you depressed? He says, getting arrested and losing freedom. You've already told us about that. And then he's asked, have you ever thought, these, when I say he's asked, these are printed things, mm-hmm. and he's to tell you, and then you write them in, right?
Correct.
Have you ever thought seriously of hurting or killing yourself? If the client says yes to above, have you ever tried it? And then 37, aside 37, is self-destructive behavior, and there's 3 things. Never seriously contemplated it, had definite thought of suicide, or attempted it, and he circled B, had definite thought of suicide, correct?
Correct.
But you wrote, when he said, had you ever thought of seriously considering hurting or killing yourself, you ever tried it, what's his answer?
He said carbon monoxide is always an alternative to do it. It said it happened. I'm not clear as to what that was about. He said since it happened anyway, doing it is just a matter of time.
That's what he told you. That caused you to believe you were dealing with somebody who had very trouble?
Yes.
Do many people, in the course of your professional experience, Ms. Sartin, doing what you do on these reports, tell you things like that at that initial interview, that they're contemplating suicide, they consider carbon monoxide on a disorderly conduct type of charge? That's a rare response, isn't it?
It's a lengthy response.
To what?
A lengthy response. Some people do discuss that because there's a situational depression from being convicted.
Of disorderly conduct? People have told you in the past when you asked them that question that caused you to write down the method that he was going to use. Carbon monoxide is always an alternative to do it. It happened, since it happened anyway, doing it is just a matter of time. That happens with some degree of frequency?
It is not the only time that's happened to me, let's put it that way.
Rarely it happens.
But rarely.
Yeah. So you knew you had a troubled young man across the table from you when you were talking to him, right?
Correct.
What did you do when you were feeling angry with people? Have you ever heard anybody when you were angry, not around people that can make? What does that mean? Do you recall?
He was saying he's not around. He's a loner. He's not around people that make him angry.
Oh, okay. He also said in handling anger, the client, and he has to mark 1 of 3, the one he marked says avoids expression to others and has trouble expressing anger appropriately, right?
How that works is from his answer, I am to pick what I think.
Oh, I see.
is
You circle
appropriate, right.
what is the most appropriate. So one of the other things you could have said was responds appropriately, and you didn't circle that. And you did not circle as physically aggressive towards people because his answer kind of told you because he's a loner, he doesn't express it against others.
Correct.
When you asked him to describe his personality, what do you like and dislike about yourself, what did he say?
He says he keeps to himself, dislikes his inability to set goals and attain goals. Basically, and he says, if I ask him another question, he must have said, nothing comes to mind.
Okay. Aside from the legal problems, what is your biggest problems? What did he say?
Lack of money. Should I read further?
I think you've read that already, so just read it again, please.
Okay, lack of money, finding a way to be self-employed. He wanted to live by the ocean. I think he says here he wanted to make $25,000 a year, or I'm not sure if he was making that or wanted to make that. And he wanted to have control over his working hours, look into, if I recall correctly, it was mail order. Those are some of the things he would like to do.
Next page, and now we're talking, just so I understand, we're talking about an interview that took place on April the 6th, 1987, right?
Yes.
You ask him, or you circle after talking to him on question number 42, how do you expect this problem to work out? That is the problem of his plans. After what he tells you, he says the attitude towards solving problems, you circle pessimistic, expects to fail.
Correct.
When you talk about his future goals and in answer to his response, you circle unrealistic goals, right?
Correct.
How will being on probation affect your life? What do you expect to get from being on probation? What does he tell you?
My writing, I think it says it would be restrictive.
Effort.
Or effort, right?
And then the next one is in that same area, client's general expectation about probation and parole supervision. And after you and he talked, you had 5 things to put down. No effect, his expectations, monetary counseling or program help, hope supervision will help him out of trouble, negative expectations, mixed or unclear expectations, and you circled negative expectations.
Correct.
That's also demonstrative of a young man talking to his probation officer, first time that he's got some trouble. That when you put down that he has negative expectations on probation, that there is a potential of a problem probationary.
I would say so.
Sure. At that time, you had been with the department for what period of time?
Corrections since 1982.
And these initial screening type of things that we just went through, do you in your professional capacity consider those a pretty good exercise? I mean, are they worthwhile endeavor as far as you're concerned, or do you think they're a waste of time?
I think they're pretty worthwhile.
At the conclusion of that, you draw certain conclusions about the person you've been talking to, right?
Yes.
If I were to ask you to put it in the category of someone you would expect to be disturbed, I'm not talking about mentally disturbed, just disturbed as a person who made a mistake and looks like someone who's going to take hold of their problems and do something about it, or someone who goes in with a degree of confidence that you know something good is going to come of that, where would you put Dahmer? You're going into attitudes and demeanors and impressions. You understand my question, or is it a dumb question? You can say it's a dumb question.
I'd like you to repeat it again.
Sure. What did you think about him as a potential probationary after he's telling you all these negative things about him?
Actually, I thought he would do okay because he had counseling with Dr. Rojan.
I'm sorry.
He was receiving counseling with a doctor, a clinical psychologist at the same time.
Okay.
And I thought she would be able to help him.
And it's clear that if that was a helpful program, then you would expect something good to come of it. His
Of course.
probationary, yeah.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Redirect.
Yes, Your Honor. His description and how he got involved in the offense that you read, he stated he had a few drinks, had to go to the restroom, was in an undeveloped area, relieved self behind tree, he was drunk, he went further and 2 kids saw him. That's pretty much what he said, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
In doing that, he basically denied that that was an intentional act, didn't he?
Well, I'm going to object to the form of that question. The prior witness said he admitted it to it, Your Honor.
Yeah, the prior witness did, not this one, though.
But this is a question. Let the witness answer. Objections overruled.
Could you ask that again, please?
Could you read that back in? I'm sorry.
In doing that, he basically denied that was an intentional act, didn't he?
I would say that he minimized it.
In the shoplifting case that Mr. Boyle brought out, question number 4, I just want to clarify something. What he said was he wanted to see if he could get away with it.
Yes.
Now, Mr. Boyle pointed out on cross-examination that at some level, Mr. Dahmer seemed to be a troubled young man. That's pretty accurate, isn't it?
Yes.
Aren't most of the people who you counsel in probation and parole troubled young men?
Correct.
Fact is, Mr. Dahmer was coming into probation and parole with what you described as a negative attitude. Isn't that right?
Correct.
You had the authority to do that.
That is an option.
Did you do it?
No, I did not.
Anything further for this witness?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, ma'am. You may step down. A few minutes after 5, I think it's probably appropriate that we break at this time for the
a witness who's here from Green Bay.